Yeah, Dave Sneyd is here with us to look back at the weekend from an Irish perspective in terms of how much game time some of our lads are getting, and it's not really enough at the moment for the team for us to feel very confident about how Ireland are going to go in our next couple of games, the next big one in particular.
Yeah, well, the big disappointment at the weekend, especially after the first weekend of the season, was you saw kind of Aston Villa against Spurs, Conor Howard starting in that kind of defensive midfield role, and it was kind of looked really good, and then he gets bombed out for the second game. Then you combine that in with what's happening with Jeff Hendrick's situation at Burnley, and it's kind of like maybe perfect storm is a bit harsh so early in the season, but when the two fellas who have been the kind of standouts in your midfield haven't been playing really, or maybe aren't going to be playing, it's definitely a worry, you know.
What is the situation with Jeff Hendrick? Is there any way back into the team for him?
Yeah, well, yeah, of course there is. Like, look, last season he was in every single squad for Burnley. Started 25 games. I think he was only in when you sub 6 times. So last season he was one of kind of Sean Dyche's reliables. But I think something's happened over the summer whereby, like, there was a couple of rumours that maybe they were going to actually let him go, that they would take a few bob from him now because he's out of contract next summer. Now, there's obviously negotiations and stuff happening behind the scenes there, and kind of coming up to the transfer window, just kind of putting the feelers out on it. There definitely seems to be a bit rumblings there, not so much, not quite like the kind of what seems to be happening with Callum O'Dowd at Bristol City, where they're kind of really going head to head with the manager. But I think there's something happening, kind of bubbling under the current there with Hendrick and Sean Dyche, in the sense that maybe, like, he hasn't played a game in the Premier League yet, only 2 games in, but there's indications there that perhaps something could kind of bubble throughout the season. You know?
So, as in, sign a deal or you're not going to play? Is it as stark as that?
I don't know. I don't know if that was the nature of the conversation. I would be surprised, because, like, Hendrick has been a very, very solid performer for Dyche. You know, like, if you look at it, if it was a case of, right, they made a big signing and only brought in Danny Drinkwater, but last season Hendrick predominantly, I think it was like maybe 15 or 16 of the starts on the right hand side when he played, were on the right hand side of a midfield. Now it's the lad Johan Goodmanson who was kind of started there. He was there last season as well, so it's not a case of he's being displaced by a kind of a star signing who you need to get in the team. I just think maybe if there's always that little bit of brinkmanship, you know, at this point where a player comes into the last year of his contract, maybe sometimes a manager has to kind of reassert a bit of authority and maybe let him know his place in the squad, you know, and it could be ideal. Maybe it could be Hendrick might have needed a bit of a kick up the backside to kind of force his way back into the plans, you know.
Well, if he was to have a good year, he's going to be rich forever. That's like,
well, this is another thing. So, like, Hendrick now is 27, 28, so he's got one more year left in this deal. You would think for him, he probably has one really big contract in the Premier League in terms of the age he is. You could see a Premier League, like, I think he's only a couple of games off 100 appearances, so like he's 28 next January. Yeah, so like at this stage I think he's only 2 appearances off 100 in the Premier League, so like he's an established Premier League player, so you would feel he's got one big contract left. I mean, he might think, well, if Burnley aren't going to be offering me that, yeah, like the players now, like you see it now where kind of lads will happily run down their deal to get a bigger deal.
The problem is, though, where does he go? Where is there a club that exists that will, like, he can't move up, can he?
Well, again, you would have hoped this would have been this is in a whole new broad spectrum with the Hendrick debate after Euro 2016. You would have thought that's the only way he could go. You would have thought that's the basis now for him to go and build his club career and really kick on, because he was really, really impressive. And he has been impressive for Burnley in what Sean Dyche wants to do. Like, he hasn't kind of maybe scored 20 goals as you might want from an attacking midfielder, which essentially he is. He's on that right hand side and he's supposed to get into the box and support. But it's going to be, you would think now, it's going to be a club coming up wanting to consolidate and get strong, who are going to be wanting to sign him. And that's essentially, you're like, unless, as you were saying, if he has a really good season now, another club comes in and says, actually, yeah, there's a bit more in him. But he's sort of at the age now where it's one or the other. It's either he's going to kick on and clubs can say, yeah, this lad is ready to go to the next level above Burnley, or he's just going to maintain that kind of that level. And let's be honest, it's the Premier League, so it's not the worst thing in the world, you know.
Yeah, like on the flip side, like I mean, actually, if you're talking about that, we had Harry Arter on deadline day, and he was talking about a move to Watford. When you're talking about it's not an upwards move, it's probably a sideways move. That's the initial club that comes to mind for me, because like you talk about top half teams, that's not an option for Jeff Hendrick.
But if you go through it, so last weekend's fixtures, could he play for Villa? Yeah. Could he play for Bournemouth? Yeah. Could he play for Brighton? Yeah. Could he play for West Ham? Yeah. Could he play for Watford? Probably. I mean, at a push, probably not Everton as it stands now, but Norwich, Newcastle, Southampton. I'm not saying they would all be in for him. Sheffield United, Palace, Leicester, maybe not Leicester now, but there's like 10 options, 8 to 10 options there.
West Ham is the only upward move there, really. I mean,
West Ham, perhaps, but like,
is it that much upwards?
Those clubs you mentioned, and even with Hendrick now, he'd be in the squad. He'd be a squad player for those. Like, he
needs to have a good season to get in the team.
Yeah, it's very difficult. And even like you mentioned Aston Villa, like the money that I know it's an easy thing to throw at, but there is so much money for clubs to just bolt at their squads, whereby kind of lads can easily get pushed aside, and it's beginning to even happen a little bit now with Howard and Villa. But with Hendrick, like, I don't think it's a case of he's just going to be totally frozen out. Like, he's going to be in the squad, because Burnley are the type of team who they can't really afford to not have a player like that in around the place. You know, they're going to need him at some stage this season, and like they brought in Danny Drinkwater on loan as well. That might even limit it.
He's not playing at the minute, yeah.
Who's not playing. Now, the only thing I would say with Drinkwater is very much a kind of a shield player, whereas like Sean Dyche has rarely used Hendrick there. He sees him definitely as an attacker. He's either being at the top of kind of maybe the diamond, so to speak, or on that right side. So I think that won't affect him too much, perhaps, in that regard with Drinkwater.
Looking at the latest figures for the average salary for a player in the Premier League, it's 44,000 sterling, 60 grand euros, 2.2 million pounds, 3.1 million euros. So
don't feel too sorry for him.
You've just got to get this one last good season out of you, and then you can get more than the average, because there's no transfer fee.
Let's see, that's it. And you saw what happened with, was it Alexis Sanchez? Seems to be the kind of a huge kind of case in point with that, where his contract ran out and he was able to get huge money. And maybe this is where players now are beginning to possibly take a bit of a risk, in the sense of normally they want security of get your 3-year contract, get your 4-year contract, whereas now
these players
1 year is all you need.
Exactly, and these players actually probably have security, because if you've been doing that, if you've got the average salary for your last 3 years, then you've got enough in the bank to be able to go, I'm going to take one risk, and I'm going to double or treble that.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about Conor Horan. What does he have to do to get back in the team?
I don't think this is quite as I don't think it's as kind of stark in terms of with Horan, because he started the first game of the season away to Spurs, and then he gets dropped for the home game against for Villa at the weekend against Bournemouth. And I think that could have just been a case of they went 4-3-3. They played 4-1-4-1 in the first game, went 4-3-3 in the home game, wanting to obviously go at them. He gave the new lad Douglas Luiz his debut. So I think with Horan, he just needs to be a bit patient. I think he'll get plenty of games. It's just the problem is for Ireland, especially now, and it's always difficult at this time of the season where we have those qualifiers just after the season starts, because you never know how a season's going to go for lads to start off. We just need players playing, because the two lads, Hendrick and Horan, have just been so important in Mick McCarthy's system. So we can't really afford for him to have a slow start, because he could get cold next month, you know.
Remember Stan said we were good in March. Was that like because we were bad in September? was there a thing? Did he know what he was talking about?
He said a lot of things, didn't he? No, but it's not a bad, fair point, because you come to that point of the season, and like, lads have probably had a fair few games behind them, whereas sometimes if you get caught cold at the start of a league campaign, it can be very difficult to get going then when the internationals come around, you know.
Yeah. What's our midfield depth at the moment, and who is, if you had to start 3 midfielders, what are they? Who's first in? Based on the context that comes with the fact that we could have 2 of our first choice players not playing or not starting with their clubs.
It's a tough one, because McCarthy's going to look at it and he's start thinking. I think with McCarthy, he'll just go with what he knows. He's not as if he's building for the future where he can start picking and choosing. Those lads have done it for him, and I still think they'll be in the main fellas in his thoughts, because that's who's played. Like Glenn Whelan now has gone up to Hearts, so you'd imagine he'll play a few games as well. Like, I just don't know. Like, it's going to be very difficult, because who realistically can properly come in now, and who's been set in the world alight and actually kind of say, well, that's my jersey now. I think Mick will still go off what's happened in the previous previous qualifiers, unless neither of the lads, if both Hendrick and Harbouring don't kick a ball between now and September the 7th, that's when he has a kind of a big decision to make, you know.
He tends not to care about that stuff, doesn't he?
Yeah, I think a lot of times international managers are like that, aren't they? I know they always say, oh, well, lads need to play games, but that's always the lads who maybe they don't really rate or trust.
Yeah.
The lads who, managers will always, especially the type of manager Mick McCarthy is, where solid base, he knows what he's going to get from fellas. That's what he'll fall back on, and you can sort of understand it. Like he'll go back on what he trusts.
So who do you think will play for Ireland in that game?
I still think the two lads will play. Even just thinking now, even James McLean, kind of, he's sort of at Stoke. He'd be on the left. O'Dowd is kind of having troubles with Bristol City. Robbie Brady hasn't really been in and around at Burnley, but he's got an injury as well.
A rib injury, some kind of.
Yeah, like there was a 450-man provisional squad named by Mick, but you're still struggling, lads, which is still a bit of a worry. You're still thinking
Stoke are playing McLean at left back.
Yeah.
Is there a future there for him for Ireland?
I think he'll be used further up, because I do think that since Enda Stevens has come in, I think Mick McCarthy seems to like him, and even just from watching I was over at the weekend at Sheffield United's game, and to be honest, it's an interesting one actually, because Enda Stevens could quite easily actually play that left wing role as well, you know, because that's effectively how he plays with Sheffield United. It's watching him, it was actually just fantastic to watch, because he was just so positive all the time.
Right.
The link up play on that side was just really impressive, and he just looked so confident. And if you're thinking, right, well, McLean is playing left back for Stoke, I don't think there'd be too much of an issue of swapping that. Then obviously you've got the Matt Doherty situation. I know he picked up an injury, so but on the left hand side, I wouldn't rule out a possibility of a bit of a flip there, because to be honest, I think McLean did set up the goal in the last international for Ireland.
Oh, for Ireland, yeah.
But just going off there, I actually think Enda Stevens is better going forward. And if McLean is actually being used as a left back, solid left back, that could actually be a bit of a flip on the cards, you know. Okay,
probably not for the next game though, right? He might try that in the Bulgaria game.
Yeah, perhaps, yeah.
He's a very conservative manager, always has been. He's going to go with that's what happened the last time. So do you think Glenn Whelan's going to play?
I think he will, yeah. I think if he gets games for Hearts, which you would imagine now he will. He came back into the squad, and for the big games he was used. He didn't use him against Gibraltar, but he used him against Denmark, didn't he? He came in and played in that game. So you mentioned there about Mick being conservative. Glenn Whelan, job poster boy for that, isn't he? So I think Whelan will be almost that anchor as a defensive kind of in front of the back.
It was
four.
the Georgia performance, really, wasn't it? The Glenn Whelan night, wasn't it?
That was it as well. He and he looked good in that game as well. I know he get the ball away once, but
so Whelan, Harbouring,
Hendrick perhaps, yeah.
Hendrick, and then who else is playing?
So he started Robbie Brady on the right against Gibraltar, didn't he, on night one?
Yeah, and then but Brady could be that's definitely up in the air, because he's been injured.
Yeah.
So that's going to be another.
Mick's a good man to pick a player who has played for him, not played since, and then 6 months later.
Jason McAteer is the kind of main man for that, isn't he? He's sort of when he's at Blackburn. Yeah. But even I'm trying to remember the game against Holland in R1. McAteer was totally out of the frame at Blackburn, and kind of his head was gone. He was really struggling. And Mick, and do you know what? Maybe sometimes as a manager,
look, you've got to do what you got to do.
But even for players, that can keep players going as well, when they know a fellow manager actually has full faith in you. That can get the best out of it as well, you know.
Yeah.
They actually have that belief, because sometimes, the amount of times your players probably go on thinking, I have to perform here, otherwise I'm out. Whereas if not that you can get into a comfort zone, but if you know, right, the manager backs me here, he trusts me, that can be a big thing to get the best out of players as well. He's
mentioned James McCarthy in passing recently enough, saying, he's got to get back in, got to play some football. James McCarthy finally got out of Everton, finally got some game time for Palace. How did he look?
Old. I feel bad saying, I saw him after the game. There was a bad tackle on him by the Sheffield United fullback Baldock, and he reacted badly to it. Obviously he's had his injuries, the broken fibula and tibia and stuff, but it wasn't a terrible tackle, and he sort of lost the head a bit. But he was, after the game, just walking through, he could barely walk.
Really?
He could barely walk getting onto the bus. He was hobbling, like, and there was no way it was that tackle because he continued on for the game. And there's a bit of a not a question mark about, well, there's a question mark in the sense of, for any player who's had that sort of injury, especially a midfielder whose whole game is based around energy and covering and just not so much getting up and down the park, but from side to side and just seeing that danger and kind of putting himself about. And this is going to be a big season. We talk about kind of a big season for the likes of, say, Hendrick in terms of his contract and stuff, but even for McCarthy, for proving it to himself. Like, he's only 28 years old, but he's had so many games. He made his debut when he was 15. Like, you know, he celebrated his 16th birthday by playing a game for Hamilton against Airdrie. You know, it's like he's just been around for so long, and I'd say this is going to be a really big test for him, and just his ability to, if he's able to continue on what he's always done, well then that's actually fantastic. If he still has that energy and ability to recover after games, like that whole thing of Paul McGrath with his knees just didn't train, Ledley King likewise didn't train. Players, he's got to the stage now, I would imagine, where he's obviously on a certain programme. He's not training maybe not training every day. He has to recover and look after himself. They were centre backs. He definitely needs to do a bit more running than those guys. Exactly, and that's the thing as well. It's changed a bit. Well, that's it, and also but then as well, if he's not able to do that, has he got the capability to alter his game? Is he the type who can actually say, well, I don't need to burst the gut every single game. I can actually just kind of really have that anticipation, because you would imagine by now, especially if he's been playing, as I said, since he's 15, so he's obviously got good football intelligence in terms of being able to read the game. So you would think then he should be able to actually say, well, hold on, I can read the danger and not have to rely on kind of constant kind of bursts of and then pace and then tackles, because that's just it's going to be a kind of a real struggle for his body, you know. What did he learn by watching McGoldrick and Callum Robinson? That you can play with two forwards up front together and still be defensively sound and also have a threat. They linked up very well. Like, what was really impressive about McGoldrick was, and you see it with Ireland, but even with Sheffield United, every time one of the midfielders or the defenders had the ball, they were looking for him. And every time he always was able to get that half a yard, or even if it wasn't even a half a yard, he would show for the ball with a defender up his arse and be able to be comfortable, just get it, lay it off, or it would be one touch. But there seemed to be a bit of a connection with Robinson. Sometimes that just happens with lads, where lads just click and they can kind of anticipate where each other will be. The fact that they're forwards, they should know, right, this is where I should be, so that's where the ball will go. And they look really good. Like, apart from McGoldrick missing the sitter, which was dreadful, he should have scored. But apart from that, it was a really accomplished performance, and I don't see how at the moment you can start anyone else for Ireland up front. And the fact that Robinson is there linking, we talked there about who you play in midfield. Robinson could be the type who could come off that right hand side as well and be playing alongside him, you know. So like it was kind of like an old school two. Oh, it was. And they would drop, they would mix it and match it. Like sometimes McGoldrick would be the one further forward, and he wasn't bursting runs in behind, but he was just how it was. Like sometimes kind of Robinson would literally drift across the front, but they were always very, very close to each other, which was it's strange to see the whole way Sheffield United play with the kind of John Egan in the centre. You have Chris Basham and the lad O'Connell on either side. They're bombing forward as centre backs. Then you have the midfielders tucking in, and the wingers. The wingers tucking in, and then even Enda Stevens will be bombing forward. The whole way Sheffield United play is almost unorthodox now, and with the two forwards up front, it's just really good to see. And it just shows you that if you're well drilled and you have the confidence and the ability to actually trust yourselves to do it, it can be done, you know. Who's going to score for Ireland? Like, is that not just a copy and paste job? Robbie Keane in training. No. I think he's the only one at the moment. Like, is that not the answer to that question, what we're seeing with Sheffield United? Because we complain about not having enough cohesion when you go into an international setup. Specifically to Ireland, we complain about not having enough Premier League players. We've got a Premier League strike partnership ready-made. Mick McCarthy to pick up and throw it to... Well, he missed a sitter, so if he's getting that's but see, this is the thing, because like obviously you look at Sheffield United, that's been drilled into them day after day after day for the last few years of how they play. Mick McCarthy doesn't have that luxury, and I know it's a well-worn argument that international managers don't have that time to do that. So what you do is you fall on your basics, and that's just the natural that's just how it is, you know. And that's with Ireland. I don't think the blueprint's going to be ripped up and you're going to see kind of Mick McCarthy copy Sheffield United. It was only one game. I was Crystal Palace at home, and did only win 1-0. But it was good to see that if a system was worked to properly like that, like this whole thing of, I know you have to be strong in the midfield, and that's the most important area of the pitch, but like Palace in that game, Palace didn't know how to cope when there was 2 forwards up against them, you know, and with fellas supporting them. And with Mick, in fairness, like his whole kind of mantra is put the other team under that pressure, kind of go at them and make them kind of work for it, especially from kind of pushing forward. So, and that was one thing with McGoldrick as well. He's not one of those who will just saunter around the place. Sometimes it looks like that's what he does, like, but he put a shift in. Like, he was closing down. Same with Robinson, the 2 of them, and that's what. I'm not sure if Mick was at the game. I'm sure Teddy Connor might have been on Sunday, but that would have been just as impressive as their actual link-up play was. Just their work rate, and they were smart with it as well. He knew when to press and stuff as well. So that was one of the big positives from the weekend.
Does John Egan have a chance of getting into certainly how you would expect him to be in matchday squads from now on?
Yeah, like Egan. That was the first time I've seen Egan play live for his club, and he was just like really impressive as well. Like, he had Benteke in his pocket. Benteke is an established Premier League player as well, and he's a physical fella. But Egan didn't have a bother with him. There was a couple of times where Zaha, he got dragged out. He stood up Zaha and just dealt with him very, very easily. And obviously the whole issue, it's a different system. He plays in a 3.
Yeah.
Ireland, like, you're gonna have
Shane Duffy's playing in a 3 now.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's right. Yeah, so like, and like Egan could come in and you'd have no problems. It's just about how he adapts, because it's a different environment. You're kind of going out of your comfort zone with what you know at your club, and whether or not you can fit into it. But I have no doubt he's going to play every game for Sheffield United. He is that anchor in their defence, and he marshals the defence very well, and he's a leader as well. Like, you speak to people about him, it is what they say. Like, I know Paul Doolan made him captain of doing Ireland on 19s when he came in, because he just said this fella is like, and that's what you need, and especially that's what Mick will look for as well. And
he's obviously arriving late in the Premier League compared to, you know, somebody who comes through an academy system, but like still young for a centre back. Loads of time for him to have a 6 to 8 year career in the Premier League and play plenty of times for Ireland. David, good stuff. Thanks a million for joining us.
Always.